Hi, I'm Kelly Nakasone. I am the president of the Home and School Association here at the high school. Thank you guys for coming. We're so happy to see so many faces. We just have a few items before we turn this meeting over to our students. The senior fashion show is on March 9th. Senior parents, there are still a few tickets available. The fashion show is the biggest fundraiser for project graduation. If you're not a senior parent, you can still enter to win some prizes, and that information can be found on GroupSpot or in eNews. And senior parents, if you didn't get to help out with the fashion show, there are still plenty of opportunities to get involved with your child's graduation celebration. The next PG meeting is here tomorrow night at 7. And now I'm going to turn it over to our assistant principals.
Thanks, Kelly. We actually had some repeat information, but that's good. Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle Wood. This is Doug Aday. We have a few updates from the grade advisor world before we hand this over to our main guests of the night. So I'm not sure if everybody is aware, but Miss Cordasco, who is the sophomore grade advisor, is going on maternity leave. Her last day with us is anticipated to be April 4th. So last night at the board meeting, they approved Miss Frenzy, who actually was a tenured special education math teacher here for many years. She actually stayed home to take care of her kids and is now kind of coming back into education. So she did a maternity leave last year for us at the end of the year in the math department, and then now she's coming in and is going to join us in the grade advisor world. So she was approved last night. Her start date is after April 4th, whatever that date is, April 7th. The spring break being different, not like right at the beginning of April, is throwing me off. This would be her email, and the only important thing to note is she is going to have a truncated day because she's not teaching a class, so her day will start around 9:45 and end at 2:15. So if you're trying to get a hold of her first thing in the morning or at the very end of the day, just know that her day is a little truncated. But everybody else in the grade advisor wing will pick up in the morning, so Mr. Day, myself, or Mrs. Unone will be able to help during those times when she's not here. We wanted to promote the 10th and 11th grade semi-formal dance. We are trying a new location this year, which is Pinstripes. It is at the Garden State Plaza Mall. Both Ms. Cordasco and Mrs. Unone went to go visit it, and they're so impressed with the facility about how nice it is and all the exciting things that the kids are going to get to do at the dance. So enrollment, or I should say sign-ups for the dance, is kind of coming in slowly, and we'd like to see that pick up a little bit. So forms were sent home via email. We can also print them out in the GA's office. All the money is due by March 4th, because if we don't get enough 10th and 11th graders to sign up, we might open it up to 9th graders, but we really would like to keep this a 10th and 11th grade event. It is semi-formal, but we talked to the event place, and they said if you're wearing sneakers, you don't have to change into bowling shoes. And I know a lot of the girls like to wear their Converse with their dresses, so as long as they're in sneakers, they're going to be able to bowl. Bowling, bocce. Miss Maxwell, who's a teacher here, is going to be the DJ, and it should be a really, really fun night. So, updates from my GA world, and Kelly already mentioned this, so fashion show is on March 9th at the Tides. I can't believe this, but starting the beginning of April, I will be starting height measurements for graduation, and I just felt like putting that up there, because if you don't feel like it's coming very soon, just know that I will be taking height measurements the first week in April. Prom is May 30th. A lot of parents were asking me about that. It is the Friday after Memorial Weekend, and I'm going to be sending the forms home, again, right around the beginning of April. I'm sending them out a little bit earlier this year because I'd like to see them come back earlier so I can start to check off who's coming and start doing table arrangements and all that good stuff. The other thing to kind of keep on your calendar is the Senior Sunrise Breakfast is going to be Friday, June 6th. And I appreciate all the parents working to plan that for the students because it's always a really fun event. Last thing from my world, and I sent an email home, but I really think it's important for the senior class to be tracking their attendance totals, because graduation, there's a couple classes that are key for graduation requirements, and because we did up the attendance limits this year, we are going to stay very strict to those numbers. So I've been emailing parents and students and having meetings, but it's also really important for the students to take responsibility on that. And I think that's it from the grade advisors. Yep. Ms. Kirtanay.
thank you for having me at a different forum. I'm really honored to speak on behalf of my colleagues and friends as the faculty and staff of Ridgewood High School to offer the faculty report. So I'll start first with the school report that I generally give to the HSA, and then Mr. Nias and I are going to transition over to the presentation. So first of all, to the HSA, as always, thank you so much for the wonderful, thoughtful gifts. In fact, one of the quotes that came back with the notes of inspiration were super meaningful. So thank you for putting the gifts of lotion and lip balm together for us. It really was a practical and thoughtful gift for all of us. Starting with the service world, this month Project Interact, again, if any of your kids want to join Project Interact, it's a service organization always taking really good ideas. They participated making Valentine's Day cards for the veterans and pediatric patients at Valley Hospital. Funds were raised for Kids in Cleats, which supports a school in Cameroon. Monthly food drives were held to raise food for the Ridgewood Rotary drives. And students are going to be helping out with Super Science Saturday, both in the setup on Friday as well as the actual event on Saturday. Maroon Awards happen. That's the quarterly event that celebrates students who do simple acts that make the community a better place. And the Maroon Awards celebrated about 13 students this quarter that were nominated by faculty and staff for their character efforts. News from the English department and department news in general. Departments continue to look at how to negotiate the power in developing tech of AI, acknowledging it as a reality in this digital world, but also considering how to utilize it and harness it without stunting fundamental skills that we feel as a faculty are important to connect with one another as humans and for our society. ELA in the English Language Arts Department just participated in the National African American Read-In on February 12th to celebrate Black History Month and its focus on daily literacy. So about 6 million people across the United States over a number of years have participated in this initiative from the National English Teachers Council to actually read and be off of our devices and read together and learn together from various authors. AP African American Studies, in its first year of running this year, has spearheaded morning announcements in honor of Black History Month, bringing in art, culture, history, and English. The Social Studies Department recently engaged in discussions on civic, the constitutions, and lessons of today's geopolitical realities and how they relate to the curriculum we teach across the board. And we are constantly having ongoing experiences with guest speakers. And with this wider audience, I felt it prudent to invite members of the community to connect with department supervisors if you feel you have work that connects with our curriculum, and we always like to bring guest speakers in to make the curriculum come alive to our students. We just had 2 FBI agents come into a forensics and law class, and it really adds a different dimension of worth to our students. And finally, and Sheila's here, I'm sure she may talk about it as well, but we have Super Science Saturday, this monumental effort to bring the community together to be creative and explore, and that's ongoing on Saturday morning from 9 to 1:30 here at the high school. From the arts world, we had another very successful Maroon and White, which highlights visual and performing artists at the high school. Multiple musicians have been accepted into the regional bands and choirs and orchestra. A cappella groups have made it to the ICHSA semifinals, with Ava Fontes winning acclaim for beatboxing, and if any of you have heard her, she's fantastic. March, it's Youth Art Month, so across the schools, I know there are a number of parents here from elementary and middle schools. The Youth Art Month, showcase will be March 19th at the Ed Center from 6:30 to 9 p.m. New Players had a very successful concert run and is now on to Mean Girls, the musical, with multiple sold-out shows, and they've added in more performances as well. Asian Festival is this Friday, and the benefit is Saturday at 5 p.m. The doors open at 4:20 to support Doctors Without Borders, and we have over 170 students participating in that, and I noticed some of the parents are here who have been volunteering in great efforts to bring performances for 4 different periods to about 1,800 students on Friday during the day. Athletics, important dates to keep in mind. This one's sort of the medical forms for spring sports were due on Friday, so the desperate plea, if you've not checked your email from the nurse, was please get your forms in immediately. That's for spring sports. Important, I think, the athletic blackout dates for the summer are Saturday, July 26th through Sunday, August 3rd. So those are the dates from which sports will not be in session. quick update from the wrestling world. We had 3 wrestlers earn BCWA county titles in their respective weight classes, with 2 moving on out of regions, qualifying for the individual state championships. Francesca Gufsa and Camila Castro are 2 of those wrestlers. Charlie Shadow won the county title in his weight class and earned, I think it's worth mentioning, his 100th career win earlier this month. And 4 more wrestlers are moving moving to regional championships this weekend as well. Ridgewood Swimming, for the first time since 2019, won the sectional title. The vastly successful boys and girls indoor track program continues to do exceptionally well, winning their sectional titles. Catherine Keating winning in her meet, and Luke Pash winning again in a stupendous race. The last time that was done in his 1,600-meter run was back in 1994. I know there's some alumni out here too. Girls basketball earned the 4th seed for the tournament. Boys basketball gets the 1st seed for the state tournament. Johnny Jackson has recorded over 2,000 points in his career, and he very successfully overcame cancer, which is so exciting in so many different ways for him to achieve that both feats. Mike Troy, the head coach, notched his 301st win as the head coach of the boys basketball team. Our fencing duo of Claire Lee and Nishka Vishwanathan will be representing Ridgewood, and I'm saying a lot of these things the athletic department wanted me to, just to let parents who are not high school parents or high school parents know of the vast opportunities we have here at the high school. Ice hockey has earned the number 4 seed. Girls alpine skiing has won the state title, and competitive cheer took 2nd place at the state championship competition. So there's a lot happening here at the high school. I think it speaks to the wealth of our resources, the energy and the conviction of our students who continually inspire us. And I think that that's an awesome transition to what you're going to do in inspiring us as well, tomorrow's teachers. Mr. Nyes asked me to open it slightly. Do you want to go to the graphs? Or? Okay. So I speak to you as a faculty member, not just as a faculty member, but also as an alumna of this high school and the school system, and as a parent. So I'm truly, I think a triple beneficiary of the school system with a vested interest in it. Dr. Oates from Somerville sent out something today from the Journal of American Medicine, which really encapsulates, I think, what a lot of the faculty feedback we received. We put out faculty surveys to ask about what people thought about the new initiative to have phone caddies and everything go up in phone caddies. And this is a quote that I thought was quite apt from that Journal of American Medical Association letter. Parents and adolescents may derive benefit from access to phones for communication and learning purposes during school. However, application usage data from this study suggest that most school day smartphone use appears incongruous with that purpose. And that was sort of the takeaway that we received from the faculty and staff. There was a full range from the faculty and staff. Mr. Nyas will show you some of the data, I think. But we had a range going from, I'd love to just say, look at the countries that, these are all quotes. I'd love to just say, look at the countries that banned phones in schools and simply let the glaring data let us finally do the obvious. The idea that students are more attentive when there's no temptations of phones. They are more attentive in safety drills, which make them go smoother for fire drills. One of the detriments of phones that faculty mentioned was that it has cultivated a culture of impatience, where students are not aware of how impatient they're being when they're asking questions and not getting the answers that they want, even in terms of social cues. They're not even looking up and making eye-to-eye contact, and this reliance on external factors to prompt them with civility was a concern of many faculty members. When phones are away, faculty members felt on the whole that students were more social, more likely to strike up conversations with themselves and with others. One quote I thought was interesting from a freshman teacher, that students are reading far more when they are off their phones. This is the quote: "I've noticed that they spend less time on their phones, whether they're reading for fun or bringing those books to class or for their English class. They're reading more and being exposed to more vocabulary, which has improved the writing short term, and more questions about what does this word mean without Googling it," which I thought was interesting. I think it's that, the quote continues, "I think that's because they don't have a phone as a time waster and are reading for fun or watching videos that actually broaden their literacy," which was a universal sort of message for those who believe that phones should be kept away. There were people who said that they do use the phone for slow motion camera experiments in a science class. There were others who talked about, while acknowledging the detrimental effects of excessive cell phone use, it is something that we need to teach starting in the home and supplement in schools in terms of self-regulation. And The one-on-one device program, while valuable, has inherent limitations because Chromebooks may often supplant the use of the phone now in the classroom, so that was a concern. But the idea was we must equip students, quote, with the tools and strategies to navigate the digital landscape responsibly. And I think that that speaks for almost everybody that you will see. I know that tomorrow's teachers are going to go up. I taught a few of you up here, and I just want to say that there's no better way to experience teaching than to do what you all are doing. So thank you for all that you do for us.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kirtanay. All right. For those of you that may not know me, my name is Jeff Nias, principal of RHS. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and thank you for being here. So I just want to kind of say how we got here in the sense of, very quickly, 2 years ago, when Danielle Wood started as the assistant principal here, she said, you know, a lot of teachers are using these as optional, the phone caddies. She's like, let's put them in all classrooms just because if they're there, they can choose whether to use them or not. So I thank her for that. So she ordered them and had them installed in the summer. We found that maybe half or maybe 25 to 40% were using them. And, you know, maybe not consistently, but they were being used. The anxious generation, which kind of came out late last spring, I would say, started getting some attention from staff members, and they asked me to read it and, you know, look into it. And I had some discussions with the staff later in the year, and I said, you know what, it's time. We are going to just, in the instructional classroom, we are going to require teachers to put them away. And, you know, we'll see how this goes, and we'll monitor it throughout the year. So on page 15 of the book, if you have read it or if you plan on reading it, it's probably the most, in my opinion, the most paramount page of the book in terms of like what it said. And it got into this whole thing about parents, me being one of them, watching my kids. They're a little older, they're 24 and 21, but they grew up in the time of the smartphone, and actually I made many mistakes, but it talked about how we overprotected them in the real world and underprotected them in the social media world, where we give them access at home to internet, we give them access at home to, you know, cell phones or tablets or things, and you know, we don't really monitor that as well. And it gives some recommendations, you know, in that particular page. And one of them is cell phone free schools. We feel the caddies are working well. You heard some of Ms. Kirtanay's, you know, points about the teachers, and we continue to talk about that. There's schools as local as Ramsey who are using Yonder pouches, and they basically put them in pouches during the day, and they don't have access to their phone at all. I don't think that's necessary here. I think our kids are pretty responsible at this time, and you know, they do enjoy their time together and using their phones on their free periods and things like that. That may be something we look into in the future, but it's not something I'm looking into right now. The other thing it mentioned was no social media until 16. And the other thing it was saying is the internet, no social media until 16, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes and I can't even understand my own handwriting. And no smartphones until they get to high school. So that's why I wanted to invite the community, because I had this conversation again with the staff in the fall, asking them about the cell phone caddies, but I also asked them, what do you think of these other recommendations? Some of the staff members came to me. They have children in Ridgewood High School or Ridgewood Public schools, and said, Jeff, we talk about this. We have these conversations. Can we meet? So Allison Saladino, who's right there, set up, she brought in like about 4 couples from Somerville, and we had a small conversation, and I said, you know, I'd like to do this meeting. And they said, that would be amazing. And we just talked about, you know, what would it be like to give parents permission to keep the phones away from them as long as possible. And again, I don't think that's an easy task. I think you're gonna be pushed. I think you gotta create boundaries. I think there's a lot of things that have to happen. But if you believe in some of the things that you say, and there's data that backs this up, then maybe it might be easier if there's numbers, all right? And the last thing that Jonathan Hyde actually recommended is more unstructured play, which I think is so important. So after having these conversations with some of the staff members and talk about it in the faculty meeting briefly, Ms. Sargenti, who's over there, who teaches tomorrow's teachers, brought this information back to the kids and had such an amazing discussion with some of these students who are up here now. And she invited me to the class, and then we had some amazing, and the anecdotal information that they were giving and some of the great things that parents are doing to keep screen time down. Sometimes they'll tell you how to get out of screen time. Screen time's an app that you can control the amount of hours you're on social media. They'll tell you that they know how to get around it. So, right? Yeah. Maybe they won't tell you that. But we had such a great conversation. So I asked them, would you be willing to do this in a parent meeting? And of course they said yes. So I'm very excited to have them here. And Ms. Sargenti, who's been very gracious of her time in working on this with their class. So before I have them come up, Ms. Kirtane said I had some data. I just collected this last week, and I just wanted to show you some of this. So the policy to limit students' access to personal devices during class time has helped me in my classroom. You could see, that close to, 86, 87%, if you look at the purple and the green, agree or strongly agree or agree with this. And this is 46 teachers who just, I just sent this out last Friday, so it was quick. Students are more engaged in the classroom when they do not have their personal devices out in the class. And you can also see a strong correlation of agree and strongly agree. Students' work has improved since students have been out of touch with their personal devices during class. Again, a large percentage is strongly agree and agree. And then the final one, cell phones can enhance my instruction in class, so I prefer students to possess their devices on their person in class at all times. And this is the one where they strongly disagree and disagree. So the faculty have been finding when they don't have them in their hands in the classroom to be very positive experience. It also, if you think of even yourselves, if your phone vibrated right now or buzzed, you have the tendency to look. You want to see. They tell me about this all the time, that what's happening, what am I missing, what's going on at that moment. And when if all of the teachers are doing this, and we're monitoring it, myself, Mr. Aday here, Ms. Wood, the supervisors when they go in classrooms, if they're doing this consistently, I think the kids feel a little bit better, like, I'm not the only one that doesn't have my cell phone on my desk in the classroom. So that was some of the purpose behind that. So I'm really excited. I can talk about this for a long, long time. And it's very interesting stuff. I welcome any of you to email me, call me. I don't know why I just did that, but I'm kidding. I'm happy to talk to you about this, yes. But I want to get these kids up here. They worked really hard on this, so please help me and welcome our tomorrow's teachers.
All right, so hi, we are tomorrow's teachers. It's a group of juniors and seniors who are either aspiring teachers or just want to know more about the teaching profession. So my name's Emma and I'm a senior.
I'm Julia, I'm a junior.
I'm Sarah and I'm a senior.
I'm Sophia and I'm a senior.
I'm Charlotte and I'm a junior.
I'm Hannah and I'm a senior.
I'm Sophie, I'm a senior.
I'm Leela and I'm a junior.
I'm Stella and I'm also a junior.
Okay, so we were really inspired by the anxious generation. We had a great discussion about it, so this is our presentation on iPhone usage. So in our class, tomorrow's teachers, a major topic we've been discussing is cell phone usage. So we made this presentation to cover essential aspects to help use devices more efficiently and responsibly, and give information and tips on how to manage it with your children.
We will go over suggested time to give access, tips on using it, screen time, social media, pros and cons, and then this presentation will ensure that you and your children will know how to navigate social media at an appropriate time and safely.
So to kick off our discussion, we talked a lot about when we got access to our own phones, and we want to start off by saying it really depends on you and your kid. There's really no one right time, and we had the pandemic during middle school, so that really changed our grades and how we grew up. But a lot of us got our phones around going from elementary school to middle school, so 5th, 6th grade range. Getting a phone marks like a lot of, responsibility and independence. It's almost like a rite of passage in a way, but there's a balance. You don't want to get sucked in too young. There's a lot of danger to it on the same page, but we thought of it as training wheels. There's a lot of ways you can enhance. You can put on like screen time limits or you can like approve apps. There's a lot of different ways to almost put training wheels on your kid's phone to, set off starting rules. And we also want to put an emphasis on there's a big difference between getting a phone and social media. Social media is a whole different access to the internet, more interactions with other people, but just having a phone is, with interacting, just texting and apps like that.
Okay, so while phones have many benefits, they can also have a lot of drawbacks. So me and Leela did the pros and cons of having a cell phone.
Some of the pros to having a cell phone is safety and communication. So a pro of this is when you have like a kid who's taking the bus or walking home from school, it's very beneficial to be able to text them, like if their bus is running late or if they get lost or something like that. Another pro is social connection, and they're able to call, text, FaceTime, and play games with their friends. Responsibility and independence is another big one, and you have to have a lot of responsibility to have a phone. Creativity and hobbies is another big one because they can play games with their friends and just like draw, and there's all these apps that they can do that like they're into and their hobbies. And GPS tracking and location sharing is a big one because there's apps like Find My iPhone or Life 360 where you can always know where your kid is at all times of the day. And a relatable scenario about the pros of giving your like 5th to 6th grader a phone is, imagine your kid walks home from school and realizes they forgot their house key and they are locked out of the house, so they call their mom or dad for help. This is a pro because your kid needs your help and you are able to get in contact with them and figure out this conflict together.
Okay, so for some of the cons, we have distractions, cyberbullying, cost and responsibility. And I know that Leela said that responsibility is also on the pro side, but it can also be a con because sometimes when your kid has a phone, it might feel a burden to them. Difficulty developing social skills and peer pressure and comparison. And comparison meaning like on apps like Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, your kid can compare them to influencers, celebrities that have those apps. And for my scenario, I said, your kid watches videos on his phone late at night and he is all tired for school tomorrow. And this means like using phones before bed can make it hard to sleep because of the blue light. Because of the blue light, like tricks your mind into thinking that it's still daytime. So that could be one of the cons for the scenarios.
So phone management as kids get older, these are some things that we've experienced. So in high school, it's really important to learn the balance of having freedom with technology in class, not just phones, also computers, and being able to pay attention and ignore the distractions. So senior year especially, students, they need to learn how to work with technology instead of against it to prepare for college, where there's not going to be phone caddies or lockers to keep out personal technology. So you really need to learn the personal responsibility and teach your kids good habits young in like technological wise. Like kids learn from seeing you, so like putting your phone to bed 30 minutes before, like that's a really good habit, and they need to learn to regulate themselves on the phones. And because over-regulation of the older kids can cause a dependence, and it won't help them later on.
So I just wanted to show some positives of screen time, like learning, using educational apps and videos, creativity with the creativity apps, drawing, you can code, you can listen to music or create music, communications, you can call with your friends, you can text your family, fun and relaxation with games, movie, Netflix, Disney Plus, all those like entertaining apps. An example of this is you can use a program or a software to create like a birthday card or design different cards or drawings off of your electronics. A negative to too much screen time, however, is less exercise because you're more doing stationary activities and you're not going out and having those one-on-one conversations with your friends. Sleeping problems with that melatonin and having the lack of that hormone. Harder to focus, less real-life social time, and the risk of exposing your young child to mature or older content. An example of this is I doom scroll on TikTok all the time, and I push back my homework, and I sleep late, and that does cause more harm than good. So that's an example of like too much screen time. And a tip could be having 1 to 2 hours per day and using that screen time and blocking off that time so the kids can go out and read and play other activities. Screen time before bed, like I mentioned before, it causes bad sleeping habits. The blue light on the phone tricks the brain into thinking it's daytime. When this happens, the body stops producing melatonin. And a helpful tip is to turn off the phone an hour to 30 minutes before bedtime and take the phone or set a screen time limit where you can't go on the phone at a certain time so you can really control that. And I completed a screen time hours of the high school students in my statistics class as like a personal project of mine. And you can see on the extreme there's 20 hours a day, which is a lot. I don't know how the girl did it, but you can see, I think she listens to music while she sleeps. And then you can see on the lower end there's 2 hours a day, and those are more the academically minded students. But on average, it's the 4 to 6 hours a day.
So I did a survey with over 50 responses, and this is saying how many apps most people have, and a lot of people have 4 apps. I personally only have 1 app, Instagram, and I wanted to get it earlier. I ended up getting it right before high school, but because my mom was making me wait. She's over there. Thanks, Mom. But once I got it, I realized it wasn't all that much, and I actually sometimes wish I didn't have it. This is how many hours. So a lot of people spend around 2 to 4 hours, and so I have a screen time limit for an hour, but as Mr. Nice was saying, I do know the code for my screen time limit, so I end up spending about 2 hours a day. But I'm trying to work on it being a little less. I'm trying to work on it. I'm trying to make it back to an hour. So goals for everyone.
Another question that was asked is, what age did you receive social media? And the majority of the participants received it in middle school or the summer before middle school. And I also received my social media in middle school. And I felt like this was a good time for me, as I felt I was mature enough and my parents were very helpful with guidance and restrictions, which I believe is essential when you get social media. And in middle school, it can be easy to feel left out, and having social media helped me feel more connected to my peers with the right restrictions. Also regarding social media and phone usage, I got my phone summer going into middle school, and I feel like this was a perfect time for me, as I use the bus as transportation, and oftentimes the bus would be late or it wouldn't show up, and it helped me to communicate with my parents.
And finally, we have, do you like having social media? So 80% of people said that they do like having social media, but about 15% said that they didn't like having social media, or they somewhat liked having it. And this is because they thought they have it because of society norms, and they feel forced to have it. And I sometimes feel that way too. I have my Instagram, but sometimes I feel like it can be stressful, and I wish I didn't have it.
So just to end on a little bit of a lighter note, The Anxious Generation, like Mr. Nyes mentioned before, was really the book that sparked this whole discussion. And I mean, there's a book, but there's also a really great website right here. You can, maybe if you want to, yeah, wait, go back. Yes. There's a website or a QR code if you want to take a picture of it, or scan the QR code is a great use of an iPhone. But just looking at the website, oh yeah, no problem. Take a chance. But it has a lot of great resources. There's a lot of, I mean, just to start, the point of the Anxious Generation website, there's a big message. I mean, they're putting a lot of content that makes just an example of it, but the whole point of the website is that the point is that they're trying to get across is that they're rewiring childhood and creating an epidemic of mental illness. This is how kids are growing up nowadays. They're programmed to look at this content, to be addicted to it all the time. But the website, they're really trying to create this, promote this mission that, you know, to get kids back out there and playing and in their natural environment and seeing people face to face again. And they have a lot of things on a broader scale about, you know, taking away phones in schools, but they also have a lot of, you know, smaller stuff like taking away phones at the dinner table or having phone-free Fridays with your kids. And there's just a lot of great website resources if you want to check it out. There's a lot of videos, podcasts, articles, links to other books, and it's a really nice website.
All right, so we wanted to come up with some questions that we thought were some frequently asked that you guys might be wondering. Our first question is, how does Screen Time, the app, work?
As mentioned before, Screen Time is a tool used by parents, regardless if it works or the kids bypass it, that sets restrictions, monitors app usage, and can kind of control and set time limits for certain apps.
Our next question is, what are the school's phone policies?
Schools' phone policies differ from school to school. So here at Ridgewood High School, phone usage is permitted between class periods, during lunchtime, and free periods. But the phone caddy system, as mentioned before, is used during class time. At the middle school, I know that phones are not allowed at all and to be kept away in lockers at all times.
Our next question is, what is the right age to give a child a phone with social media access?
So this is a hard question to answer because there's no right answer. It really varies from person to person and from family to family. Our class concluded from our research with the Anxious Generation and from our personal experiences, giving kids access to phone with social media is best right around entering high school and in high school.
And our last question that we prepared was, how do you encourage a healthy relationship with technology?
Setting guidelines and rules with clear explanation and reasoning allows the child to understand why limitations are being set. More importantly, this encourages them to do the same for themselves as they get older and encounter technology more frequently.
You guys can sit down.
First, I just want to say they did all of this on their own. So it came very organically, as Mr. Nias was saying, out of conversations that are critical and really important. And this type of conversation with the anxious generation is, spreading rapidly around the communities and everywhere. Recently, there was an anxious generation discussion at my public library. 50 people came. People want to know. Technology is advancing and progressing at a rate that is exponential. At this point, right, we got to this point where we didn't even know that this was coming. It was kind of like a fast train going nowhere. And, iPhones were given out and everyone has the iPhone and as they're mentioning all these great things, no one wanted to be left out. So it was kind of just, this is what you do. And now we're really at this very excellent opportunity in time where we can reflect and take all of the information that they have gathered, it disrupts your sleep, it causes pressure, it causes cyberbullying. So we're at this point where we can now have hindsight and look back and collect data and now start creating boundaries. What are we going to do moving forward with technology? But I just wanted to, I do want to end in a moment, but they had this great idea, and so I want to kind of let them keep going with it. They wrote every slide themselves, they collected the information independently, so I'm really proud of them. They did such an amazing job, but they really feel strongly right now. They have a strong desire, and I want to give them that opportunity to see if you have questions and they would like to answer them for you. So you guys can, if you want to maybe sit on the stage, or you can come forward a little bit, whatever you want to do, like comfortably. And yeah.
Okay, I mean, for me, I really like having my phone to text, but just like Charlotte, I only have Instagram, and I also have a self-regulated limit. I really don't like spending too much time on it. I feel like it blocks up my homework. I'm talking to people in person less, and sometimes a lot of people are like, you know, I'm just gonna say for like group projects, they'll only communicate on certain apps, which I mean, I don't have. So sometimes it's a little bit like, all right, you know, it gets a little hard to communicate with people sometimes, especially in person. There's just a lot of like pressure to have everything and have complete access to everything, and some kids literally just do not want that, and it makes it hard to connect with others sometimes. And I think that's what I think. But.
I feel like I can also speak on this because I'm kind of on the other side of the spectrum. Like, I have probably every single social media there is, like, and I have had it, and I really do feel like sometimes phones and social media, like, responding to the text is hard for some people, and some people love being like in the know at all time. So personally, I really think that like when you have nothing to do and you go on social media, it's like it's hard, and it's almost like a burden to like see like other people, and like the thief of comparison. Like, comparison is the thief of joy. Like, I feel like that's so true. So I feel like that's kind of, I feel like that goes to the point a little bit.
So TikTok has the short videos, and I find myself on there so much more because it gives me like the dopamine boost opposed to Instagram, where Instagram is just a picture and you can get bored with it easily. So I do find myself gravitating there because I feel like I feel more fulfilled when I watch TikToks opposed to when I look at Instagram. Also on TikTok, it's not only like comparison and like dancing. There's also a lot of things I find, like I see recipes on there that I use a lot, and there's also like really helpful crafts and stuff like that. And like even on Valentine's Day, I use one to like make my parents a card, so it can be used for good ways. And also,
I can also add, and on TikTok, the more you watch it and the more videos you like, the more the videos come up for you and like more relatable for you. So people find themselves more on TikTok because they relate to the videos more, and they're more their interest, when like Instagram's more like everything and a lot more scattered.
Do you feel like Instagram is the one you know? Yeah. Okay, I can keep going, but I'm gonna one more. How do you think you will handle phones and social media if you guys go to college and your parents aren't around to set screen time?
So I don't have screen time limits as it is, and I never really had it ever since 6th grade was probably my last year having it. So I feel like for me, I definitely like have more freedom when it comes to that. So right now my screen time, I think today alone was like 6 or 7 hours. So I am on it a lot, and I don't even catch myself doing it. So I feel like when it comes to college, I am gonna have to like restrict myself more and give myself rules, because right now I have nothing. So, yeah.
So personally, my parents, I feel like they did a really good job. They, like Sophia said, they didn't really give me screen time. They didn't really restrict my phone for any reasons. So right now, I know how to control myself, like to not scroll on TikTok for hours, to not like snap back like a million people. So in college, I feel like I'm not really gonna have that much of a struggle just because of how my parents like didn't restrict me to my phone.
I'm going to say something really quick because I'm her mom. She's the #1 person at the dinner table right now that tells us to all put away our phones. So I will say, I think middle school, I'm also a middle schooler, and I think she's way worse, and it annoys her more. So I think once they grow up a little bit more, I find that they're a lot more responsible, and that's my opinion. But she's definitely much more cognizant of when she's on it, when she's not on it. So that's good.
How do you define social media? Like, is texting social media, or is it only if it's an entire large group? Is it if someone's making comments? Like, I'm just curious how you guys define that genre.
For me, I think social media is something where like you can interact with like people in like your grade or like that you know, but also like things that you can like and like repost. It's like very interactive. So on Instagram for me, it's very like everyone. Like I follow so many people that I know, but I also follow a lot of people that like I really don't know. And it's just because it's like, oh, they go to my school, I have to follow them, so like I can like their posts and like maybe they'll know me and stuff like that. But on TikTok, I know it's very much just like following a lot of like influencers and trying to like not be like them, but you want to watch their videos because everybody else is, and it's interactive.
Another former student here.
Hi, thank you guys so much for all of this information. We've been talking a little bit about like self-regulation, and I know there's some parents here too. I'm a mother of young children, so we're not quite at the stage yet, but as we approach it, did any of you have like contracts with your parents where there were like specific rules written down that you like had to sign? Does that make you cringe, or is that like, you know, something that could be okay, you know, or is that like, oh my God, what the heck is this mom talking about? Put her on the straight path.
Okay, so basically my mom was the only mom in this class where she had a little box, a cell phone box with chargers inside. And every night at like 5 o'clock or like right after school, she would put all of our phones, me and my 2 siblings, in the box so we'd be able to go outside and play. And that was like one of our like contracts where like it was just how she like controlled us on our phones in a more physical way because she knew we could get out of screen time. So there's always options like putting your phone in the kitchen at night, like stuff like that. So that's one of the ways like a parent can monitor the usage.
I don't know how old your kids are, but I work at an aftercare at the Lincoln School in Wyckoff, and I see a lot of those kids, not like the kindergarten through first, but I see a lot of like 3rd through 5th starting to get their phones, and I got my phone in 4th grade, but it was my dad's old like iPhone, like literally 2, and it could only text, and every text was like a couple cents. And I think that was a really good way. Like, I would walk home because I went to Hawes and I lived like 2 minutes away. And I would just send him a quick text, be like, got home, and that kind of stuff. But along with the contracts, I think my parents did a really good job. Like, they would take my phone before bed because I would have such trouble sleeping when I was younger. But they would explain to me why they were taking the phone. So they would be like, well, I'm taking your phone, but I'm not taking it just because I can, which they could, but I'm taking it because you're going to benefit from this. Like, it really explained the reasoning, and like, yeah, I was still like petulant towards it, but I understood, you know?
I have a 2-part question. For the ones that were able to self-regulate, do you find that in general you have a non-addictive personality and that helped you to self-regulate? Or do you find that not having the restrictions, like what do you think the reasoning was behind you being able to self-regulate? And then the second part question, I know you had mentioned that some students that work on team projects do it in an app. So like, is it a Snapchat kind of thing? I have a 7th grade middle school boy, and Snapchat seems to be like the way of the world, and it's a constant fight. So the question becomes, I say, why can't you just text in your group chats? And everybody's Snapchatting, and so how do you kind of navigate that if your friends are bringing the conversation to a social media platform instead of a text group thing?
So I'm one of the kids that self-regulates, but I don't have Snapchat. I think literally everybody I know does have Snapchat, except for maybe Charlotte. But yeah, I've had a lot of situations where kids are just like, oh, our group project's on Snap, and I'm like, all right, I don't have Snap. You know, I get a weird look or two, and then, you know, I move it to group chat. Like, if it's a school project, if you can't text about it or email about it or find another way to include somebody, I feel like that's a problem in itself. But I like Snapchat's a lot of like, you know, sending pictures. There's like an option to like share your location. I was just like, I was not into it. It was just not for me. And I found ways around it. I've gone through the entire high school. I don't think I'm gonna get into college. I find it's just not something I'm really looking for, and a lot of kids do, but there's definitely ways to manage it. I found my way through it. I think Charlotte did too. There are kids that do it, and it's totally possible.
So about the Snapchat part, and like, I like foresee like some kids, and even I was like, my friends all have Snapchat, like, I can't talk to my friends, like I need to talk to my friends, but like, now that I have Snapchat on all the social media apps, like I took a step back and realized that like I wasn't having any face-to-face conversations anymore. I tell all my friends like what I'm doing every time, like every point of the day, and then we get together face-to-face and we don't have anything to talk about anymore. So I feel like that's a positive thing. Like, it may suck like in the moment not having something that all like their friends have, but like it like makes them have like more face-to-face conversations, which is like the best kind of conversation.
Okay, so to answer your first question about like self-control and everything, like my mom said, I don't know if you guys remember, it was like 10 minutes, whatever. I have a 7th grade sister, so I know like a lot of you guys have middle schoolers, and I can see like she's so addicted to her phone, and I can't even be saying anything because like at her age, I was so addicted to TikTok. I was probably on there like, I don't even know, 7 hours a day because it was during my quarantine, during COVID. So I think it's like through time that you get less addictive, sorry, and like Hannah said, like once you have the app, it kind of dies down with like everything. I guess like when you like start like sewing, like you want to sew all the time. I'm just gonna relate to that topic. When you like to like sew all the time, but then you just like, then it dies down, and like you would like to do it some like time to time on rainy days. So I just feel like that's how like social media is. Sorry, I'm just.
Do you sew? Do you sew, Stella? Yeah, I do. Okay.
less addicted to things.
All right, any more questions?
I have a question, and this one is regarding content. So my question is, regarding the content that you're exposed to, how do you decipher sources of quote-unquote truth, and how do you self-regulate the influence it has on your perspective?
On social media, I feel like you shouldn't really believe that much you hear. And this is actually funny because literally today on Instagram, I saw something and it was like Travis Kelce quit the Chiefs or something, like he resigned. That's not true. Like we all know that's not true. And then like I clicked on it and then like 2 minutes later I got another thing saying Patrick Mahomes is retiring. I was like, what? Like, no, he's not. But it just, there's so many things like that that I get all the time, and it'll be like, this place is closing, or like, oh, like this person did this, like he's going to jail. Like, you cannot trust it because they're just like, they just want to get the info out there. And I feel like with social media too, you just see so much, and you really have to be careful. I mean, my parents were always telling me like, you cannot believe what you see. And even now I'll tell my dad something that I saw online and he's like, you don't believe that, do you? But sometimes I do believe it, and it sometimes seems interesting.
Yeah, I agree with this, and I also I feel like I fell victim to a lot of those things too, especially when I was during COVID, we said all you could do was go on social media, and all people could do was spread misinformation. And I feel like a lot of that does come with age, but a lot of it, somebody mentioned a digital literacy class, and I love that. I think that's such a good, I wish I had done that, because I don't think I did in middle school. And just informing yourself, honestly, teach your kids, you have 2 or more references, like what we do in school. I think it really relates to social media. You can't see things face value either, references, and also common knowledge, Travis Kelce didn't retire, those kinds of things.
Also, to add off of Emma, to go with this question, as we said a lot in our presentation, a big part of having a phone is being mature and having a lot of you have to be independent and you have to have some knowledge. So if you see one of those and you're like, that doesn't sound right, you could do research, just so you don't get almost brainwashed by the internet. You have to have a little bit of self-respect to know what's going on and not to believe everything you see on the internet.
I also want to say, as a GA who sometimes investigates HIB and the language our students use, I have talked to a lot of administrators that when students click on something on their Instagram and it might use the N-word or something, they actually get flooded with it more and more, and then that flooding with it actually makes them think that it is language that it's okay to use. Obviously it's not okay to use it, but I do want you to be aware that they might just do that one click, and then it really does flood their phones over and over and over again, and then that actually can impact the language that they're using in school and in their community and lives, and you may not even realize where did they learn this from, and it can actually come from that. I want to say back to the false thing. I went home one day and my 7th grader, who does have a phone, said to me, "Mom, Ridgewood High School is the hardest high school to graduate from." And I said, "Where did you hear that? We have a 99% graduation rate." And he said, "It was on Instagram." And I'm like, well, it's not true. So there was a good lesson too, that he thought Ridgewood High School is one of the hardest places to graduate from, and we have a 99% graduation rate.
There are a lot of AI TikTok videos that are that start with best high schools in Bergen County, New Jersey, and it's completely AI, and I watch it because it's funny, but I know it's not true. But talking about that, that is very there's so much misinformation, and if you interact with one, it's all over your feed because it's an algorithm.
I just wanted to say one last thing about deciphering if content is true or not. I give a lot of credit to my teachers, especially at Ridgewood High School, that told me and probably everyone here to question everything, and that really has stuck with me. So I think I'm very well at deciphering and questioning everything that comes, information that I read and see, and saying, do I believe this? So I give credit to the teachers here.
I just wanted to jump in, and Allison, you might be able to speak to this as well. Something we've talked about in our social studies department with civics curriculum particularly, how these algorithms are feeding students information. And one of the things and I know Allison tirelessly works to get people to learn to do research well. The credibility of sourcing is a real problem that I think we face in the social studies department, and this instant gratification of like, I need to know the answer, so I cannot spend time doing research. And for those of us who are relative dinosaurs and knew what a card catalog was and couldn't stand it, but it actually bred patience, right? And the idea of searching, I had a student ask me every single year that I've done this in an honors level course, like I can't find the second book, and now it's like a game I play just for my amusement, I think, and to garner data. They find the book, but they can't find volume 2 of the book because it just ends at G. And the students don't understand how a book can end at G, and I just can't find the book. Someone took it out and didn't bring it back. It's because they're not understanding that there's another volume you have to seek. So the idea is, I think, and when Danielle spoke to these, what's normalizing behavior, when you get misinformation or disinformation, when you're trying to reckon with what is the truth and to question, whether it's apolitical, the statement, really to question any of our politicians and what they stand for and whether that's constitutional, not constitutional, what's happening in the world. I think as social studies teachers, we are grappling big time with students coming in with all sorts of misinformation and disinformation that is polluting their ability to make sense of the world, and also to just breed apathy in a way that is very dangerous. But Allison, you might want to speak to that also, I'm not sure.
Thank you. We'll take a few more questions, but before we do that, I just want to recognize Larry Holland back here. He's our TV studio teacher, and he's donating his time tonight to help us out and record this so other people can see this. So thank you, Mr. Holland.
Hi, I wanted to congratulate all of you on the analysis and your presentation tonight, but I wanted to ask you, you mentioned location sharing, and I wanted to kind of get a sense from you is how many of you share your location with people other than your parents? And if you do, why?
So I do share my location with my friend group, and it's mostly for when we all go out together as a group. So we go into the city together. We always do we stay together 2 by 2 if we're going to the bathroom, or we always stay in a group if we're going out into town. But still, God, something happens and one person strays away, we will know where that other person is. So we have our own little Life 360 circle where it's us and all of our friends. They can delete it when they're not with our friend group or when we're not in the city together. But if we're in the city or we're going out to dinner, we keep it on so we just know all of our friends are safe, especially being young teenage girls in today's world. We just want to make sure we're all safe. That's why I have mine on.
I know that Find My iPhone is very popular. My dad actually requires us to have all 3 of us to have Find My iPhone on so he can track us wherever we are. There's also Snapchat. You can be on have your location shared with everybody that you have added on Snapchat, so you can be on ghost mode or not. So that gives people location to your access to your location at all times, people who you might not even know, which is kind of dangerous.
That was what I was actually kind of going for. Yeah. I understand that's what a lot of people do, is just automatically there. So I was curious as to whether or not that's
I think it's kind of common, mostly common. I like to keep on ghost mode, so I don't use Snapchat. I don't share my location with anybody at all. You can specify to say you share with these specific people and not just share with the majority or all of the people that you have added.
All right. Did you have something? All right. I'm gonna, I'll take one more question, and then what I would like to suggest is maybe they can, would you mind if they email you, Ms. Sargenti, and then the class could respond for you know, because I think that would be a good thing. But I'll take one more question. And this gentleman had his hand up, so sorry about that. They have to get home to study.
Your awareness, all of you in different ways, is amazing tonight. And so thank you for being so open with us.
Thank you.
And I think that's very empowering to think about that from a parent standpoint, that the self-awareness component of this. Mr. Naya started the evening with the anxious generation in regards to how we protect our children so much in the real world, but not as much in the virtual world. Thinking about content restrictions and or making sure that, you know, just the internet, not even social media, the internet. You know, you have a 5th grader that goes on the internet on their phone, you have anything you want. What are suggestions from your standpoint to the parents in the room in regards to any ways that we can either teach and or restrict the really bad stuff that's out there that you don't want young kids to see?
So my mom has this setting on my phone where, one, we have to request apps, which will limit like all the apps you can have, and she also has this setting on my phone where you have to be, like, it's a mature thing where if you're under 18, you can't open a bunch of websites and you can't download a bunch of apps. So I think that is one factor. It's on settings that can like limit the amount of stuff you see to keep your kids safe.
So about like the internet and like the vastness of it, I'd say like what I said in my presentation is like to provide a clear explanation on why like the restriction is happening and not to like ignore it until like it becomes a problem. So I would say just like explain why like the restriction is happening, and then like you could use screen time to monitor that, but I just like the explanation is like really important to that.
For me, so I think waiting longer is a better idea. Well, for me it was. I know I said I wanted it earlier, but I think waiting was actually a good idea for me, because I think having social media, you need like a certain maturity to have it. And when I got it, I realized that like a lot of people like they only post the highlights of their life and what they really want to post. And seeing that, it's like, oh my gosh, like everyone has like everything they want and I don't have anything, especially like when I first got it in 9th grade. But then you just realize that people only post the highlights in their life. And for me, I even had to take like breaks sometimes from social media because I didn't realize that. And I would get like really jealous, and especially in the beginning. So I think it's just the maturity of the kid.
Also, not regarding maturity, I believe that you really need to educate your kids on what's real and what's not real, because that's a major problem. And it wasn't my parents' fault. I just wasn't that educated on it, and I believed a lot of things. But growing up, I started to understand what was real and what wasn't. And another thing that you can do that my parents did is restrict like Safari settings to make sure that it's age appropriate for whatever your age is. And I think that's really important because you can find so many disturbing and like awful things on the internet, and that's really important, I think.
I know like this is probably like not what you guys are gonna hear, but like that's just such a hard question to ask, because I feel like at that point you just need to have a lot of trust in your kid that they're not going to search up like bad things on the internet. I know that yes, they can come across like really bad stuff again, but I think it's all about like trust too, like I said, because I don't know that like even like now I find myself coming across like crazy things like what we said before, like rumors, not even about celebrities, people in our school, like there's like gossip pages on Instagram. But I think at that point, like you just need to trust your kid that they're gonna put down their phone, they're gonna delete the app, maybe like take a break, or even like tell you what they saw if they're comfortable with you. But again, I just like feel like it's really about trust. It's just like such a hard question to ask because the internet is full of so much information that it's just so hard to regulate.
Yeah, I think what Stella's saying is so important, like trust, but also a good way to monitor is just honestly to be there. Like my brother is in 7th grade and he's had this like Oculus, like a VR set, and I know a lot of his entire friend group has it. And my parents have a rule that, because they can't really control who he's on with, like they can tell him like only go on only with your friends, but the other day like a random man joined their like server or whatever it's called, and you can tell. And so my parents were there in the living room because he's only allowed to go on it in the living room, and they told him, they were like, get off of that, like that's a random man, you don't know that. And so I honestly think like trust, like having them come to you, but just like be there, like monitor their things. Like you can go through their phone, but like on like a big thing is like lead by example. So don't go on your phone all the time, like show them how you want them to act. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I've basically had unrestricted internet access since I was like 4 years old. So that kind of explains a lot of why there's just like literally nothing up there. But you know, on a more serious note, like a lot of the things that like I saw were some things that I just like shouldn't have been seeing as like a 4-year-old, or just like news stories even. Like if you're 4, probably seeing someone getting shot is probably not the best thing. And my brother has some stories where like he's seen actual gore, because this was maybe like 2011 when he was growing up on the internet, and that was like a huge issue. It would just be like actual gore. You would just like click on a link on a website and it'll just be like the most horrific things you've ever seen. And like I think that's kind of resurfacing now on like Instagram Reels, especially Instagram Reels, because it's just a cursed place. But you know, I think one of the more important things that I would kind of suggest is honestly just what type of tech you're giving your kids, because like I feel like you can't really access that stuff on like an Xbox or a PS5. Like I don't know what they're gonna do. Like they can't just find it on Fortnite, you know what I mean? And you know, while there's still like toxic things you can find on those gaming communities, it's like definitely better than just the whole internet unrestricted, literally able to go down any rabbit hole ever at any time. But yeah, I guess that's my little take on that. But also like it's not possible just to like completely delete the internet for everybody. So obviously monitoring like what they're seeing is a good thing.
Thanks, Macklin. All right, I'm gonna did anyone else want to say something? All right, I'm gonna let Ms. Sargenti kind of sum this up, and I want to thank all of the kids and our wonderful teacher, Ms. Sargenti. Thank you so much.
So they really did an amazing job, and I love, you know, how honest you were with everything. Like even, you know, it's not, you know, as I was mentioning before, the technology just came so fast upon us. We're in a, you know, think of this as an opportunity to be really grateful for. Like pause, hit the, you know, stop, reflect. What are we doing? Are we monitoring? What is it that we value? What time with our family do we value? You know, take a look around. You know, and I think you know, whatever, you always know whatever's happening in your home is happening in millions of homes as well. You know, but just kind of taking an inventory. Are we all coming to the dinner table, as they were mentioning, and our heads are down and cell phones are there? I think starting with elimination, right, is kind of like a little bit too high hopes, but just little baby steps they were mentioning, and again, this is all their words, like the training wheels. So that could be, let's just start. I really value you. I really value our family. I value our time together. I want to hear what you have to say. Let's start with just dinner time. When you come to the dinner table, no cell phones. And they're not even in the room, they're in another room. So like just being creative and starting with one small baby step at a time. I think being on our cell phone worldwide, it is now a habit, right? So we've heard a lot about neuroplasticity. Brain science is also growing exponentially, just like technology. And so in the past 10 years, we have learned about the neuroplasticity of the brain, and that we are hardwiring, so meaning neurons that fire together, wire together, and that creates a habit. It could be something simple as shooting, you know, I want to shoot a basket. So you keep trying, different parts of the brain are telling you what to do, so until those neurons fire together, you can't get the basket. once you practice and practice, what we practice grows stronger. Once you practice, then you can make the basket. But you know, there's a positive. The negative to that is we have spent so much time on technology, and we're so addicted to it that it is a habit. Our neurons need that dopamine hit, as they mentioned. So you see those little clicks, and it could be anything. It could be likes, it could be a video, something that you're looking at super quick, and we become addicted to just kind of scrolling down that rabbit hole, right? And we all kind of like have been there in a way. So, you know, the question is, how does it make us feel? And I think that's really like the big question. So I'll just give you an example. Before COVID, I was a yoga instructor at a studio, and I had to, the studio manager required us to communicate with our students through Instagram. Yeah, Instagram? Yeah, I don't have it anymore. So anyway, so I created an Instagram, and I would write, you know, these messages about, you know, come to the class and, you know, explain things. So since I had Instagram, then I could see what other people were posting on Instagram. So I found myself posting my content, but then looking at other content and kind of being a little judgmental. Like, oh, why did you post that? Or I don't understand that. Like, and over time, I thought, how much time just went by that I was scrolling on Instagram being judgmental about what I was seeing? And I asked myself, how does it make me feel? Is that making me feel better? Am I contributing in a positive way? Am I walking away from that 30 minutes of scrolling and feeling good about myself or anything that I've done? And the answer was a definite no. And at that point, I literally held my finger on the app, hit delete. I was like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm just judging or not being nice. So the question coming back is like, how does it make you feel? So, you know, that could be a starting point with a conversation. So, you know, you have these different apps and you're spending time on that. When you're on that, how do you feel? How do you feel in your body? What do you think about when you're doing that? And I think that's a very important question to ask. I'm just looking at my notes because I shared with the students that here's like a really scary thing. And I asked them, I'm like, can you guys check this math? Because it's just so extreme. Can this be right? And they confirmed, like, yeah, Ms. Sargenti, it's right. So at the lower end, so they did all of the research, they collected the data, they did all of the slides themselves and the pie charts and everything. So what they found is that we're spending 2 to 4 hours, 2 to 4 or 4 to 6? 2 to 4 hours a day on the internet. So at the lower end of that, and we know that it's a lot more, right? So there was 5 hours, 7 hours. For 2 hours a day, 365 days a year, so 2 hours a day, every single day for 365 days, divided by, what did we do? 2 hours a day divided by 365. See, I'm messing the math up. At the end, we'll figure it out in a second. But basically, what we figured out is 2 hours a day, you are on a device for 30 days straight for 24 hours. Because, right, it was 365 times 2 divided by, okay. It was scary, but do the math. You'll be really shocked. It's a lot of time. And you just think, like, I want to spend a month straight on an internet? Like, let's think of something else here. But anyway, the good news, there's always a bright side, right? And that's what I'm saying. This is an opportunity. I think sometimes things have to be that bad. Otherwise, we do nothing about it. Like, oh yeah, whatever. It has to be that bad to wake us up and figure this out. So the good news is that it's not too late. It's never too late to change the course by making a commitment to delay children's access to smartphones and the internet. It's not too late to make the commitment to do so. To restore play-based childhood. Albert Einstein was asked, how do you make kids smart? And his response was, read them fairy tales. And if you want them to be smarter, read more fairy tales, right? Imagination is being lost. It is a lost art. Playing outside without adult supervision, where they have to cognitively decide who, what teams, how are we playing, what are we playing, making up the rules, is a lost art. Replacing habitual screen time, because it's a habit, we're getting nothing out of it, how do we feel, with real world experiences that involve friends and family, so that when we're involving them with our friends and family, the limits that we're putting no longer feel like deprivation, but the opening of a world of creativity and satisfying opportunities. We want to provide them with opportunities for face-to-face contact, creativity, feeling good, knowing that we have put boundaries on them. I read along, my kids are all grown, but the boundaries are the only way that they know, not the only way, the boundaries are a way for them to know that you care, right? Easy, oh, it's so easy to just say, go right ahead, go right ahead, go right ahead. That's so easy. Hard is finding your seat, holding your ground, making a commitment, and sticking to it. You might, a year later, say, you know what? I think I would do that differently, but on this day, the answer is no. And no is a sentence, by the way. They will push, because that's their job. They will push, and the limit does not exist to how hard they will push. The limit does not exist. Over time, they'll stop. They'll stop pushing because you've made a commitment. This is the way it is. I understand. And I want to just, the last thing I want to say is this website is outstanding. I have checked out everything on the website. I've watched the videos. I've printed out content and information. And one little thing that really stood out for me, and I used this after I read it with my daughter who's 26 years old, there's a really great video, and I just really hope that you scroll through it, because I know that you're going to find snippets and nuggets that are going to help you. But basically, it's, you know, their job is going to be to push, and as I mentioned, there is no limit. And so in this video that I watched, the response is, I believe you. That's it. I believe you. But everybody has it, but I'm the only one. I believe you. It just softens everything all around it. So it's just an example of the really great stuff that you will find on there. I hope you are able to spend time. And if I can have 6 minutes of your time to show you the most amazing video that really encapsulates everything that they have been saying. It encapsulates where we are right now. And I think to move forward, right, you have to think, well, what is my desired end result? What is my goal, right? What are the things that I value? So I want to show you this video. It's 6 minutes long. And again, I hope it leaves you with a feeling of hope and refresh.
When I watch TV, it's just some shows that are pretend, and when you explore, you get more imagination than you already had, and when you get more imagination, it makes you want to go deeper in, so you can get more and see beautiful things. Like the path. If it's a path, it could lead you to a beach or something, and it could be beautiful.